This is Trash Talk with your host, Garrett the Trash Man.
Pagers are actually pretty freaking sweet. I wish we'd go back to pagers. I think they had it right there.
Well, because there's some bit of it that's nice, right? Because you get back to it when you get back.
Yeah, you're free. You got made aware, but you're not like tied down to it where it's
like
pulling you away when you're trying to watch a movie with your wife or whatever.
Oh, honestly, my phone, like, I not pride myself, but kind of pride myself on, I know that I put more phone hours in than anyone else I work with, right? Like, I get my phone bill and it's a phone book that comes every month because that's how many hours I'm just on the phone, sending text messages, doing stuff. But my phone, if you look at it, 24/7, it's on Do Not Disturb.
Really?
And I leave it on Do Not Disturb for one reason, because if I'm not available, I'm not available. And I don't want the phone to call me away and say, hey, take this call now. This person's an emergency. If it's an emergency, they'll get me.
Yeah.
And I found that most emergencies can work their way out if you give them a little room to just breathe. But we're so instant. We're like, jump on it, jump on it, jump on it. And next thing you know, your whole life's owned by that.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about that just this week in my management meeting. I had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we got 6 managers in here when we do our meetings. Pretty expensive meeting when you take into account everyone's salary, divide that hourly if we're here for now. And as we're going through this meeting, each one of them at some point is looking down on their phone, a text come in, a call starts to come in. I'm like, all these meetings used to happen without the interruptions of the phone. And guess what? Things work fine.
Everything's fine.
And not to mention, we're still sitting in the office. So if it's really that big of a deal,
they'll come up and get us.
Yeah. I mean, trucks, at least a couple times a year, are legitimately on fire. Someone's got to handle it.
We do have that.
But yeah, they can walk up the stairs and say, hey, listen, we got a truck on fire.
You need to break up the meeting. We got to deal with something.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, and we just get owned by it. And, I say that spending, 60 hours on the phone at least every month, and it's like, but it doesn't need to own you.
Yeah.
Set it to have the parameters. And I push that on my kids and my wife all the time. Like, if we're talking, don't go to your phone.
Yeah.
It's like I feel it's just the rudest thing. And if you do that with customers, I'm sitting there at property with a guy and I'm just keep looking at my phone. And he's like, well, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I learned that skill about 2 years ago. It is on Do Not Disturb. And if I'm available, great. I'm available. Because when I'm at my office or if I'm driving, I can see it come up and it'll flash. And, hey, I can take that.
You don't have to listen or feel it.
No, it doesn't go off in my pocket. And that way, if I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids.
Yeah. I found 90% of my calls, too, like when they're inbound and I don't know the number. Well, now there's so many telemarketers you don't have to waste your time
ridiculous.
with. But a lot of clients or different things, opportunities will come up from calls I don't know, which I would rather have a voicemail.
Yeah,
prep for it and call them back anyway.
Yeah, because then you got a little bit of idea where it's going.
Yeah.
You can anticipate those questions they're going to have.
That brings
really good.
I've also learned that, like, if I get a call at like 5:30, I'm like, well, I'm not going to answer that. Like, they know the office hours, and if it's an emergency, they'll call like 4 times, and then maybe I'll call them back.
Yeah, if it's the call.
Yeah.
If I get a call and a text like, hey, it's an important call. Okay, great.
Yeah.
But what I've also learned is not to listen to voicemails that I get at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then it works you out.
Because I don't want to call them back right then, but then the rest of the night I'm
your
like,
brain's just
it's going to happen.
Tim Ferriss talks about that in one of his books, and because he's talking about like your attention, the cost of your attention. That's exactly what it says. He's like, if you're not checking your email, like it might take 30 seconds to check your inbox real quick, but it's almost worse to see that unread message that you kind of think what it might be about, and then you just working it. He's like, you might as well just actually
dive in and do it.
Yeah. So.
Well, and I brought this because you'd mentioned that when you were talking the 4-hour work week. This is my 4-hour work week Bible. This is all my notes. Look, it's a little dusty. It's been on my shelf a little bit. I read this in 2011.
Dude, that's what kills me. It was probably around that time. That's the year we graduated. It's probably that time that I had heard of that book, and legitimately, I had such a wall go up because
No,
I was
you gotta
like,
work hard.
Yeah, it's
You gotta
gotta
work
work
longer.
hard. A book talking about not working hard. That book has nothing to do with not working hard.
Yeah, it's just working smart.
Yeah, yeah,
How can you organize it to be smarter?
yeah.
And that's it. So yeah, I thought that was funny because I listened to your thing the other day and you mentioned that. I was like, I'm gonna pull that out.
That's
and show
awesome.
Garrett.
And dude, I actually went and bought one last weekend because I've listened to it a couple times, and I'm like, I need a hard copy of this
Yeah.
one. I gotta go.
And that's
through
the
it.
thing, like, and it's
Yeah,
so
that's
great to go
good,
back and
guys.
just mark it. Okay, here's what I need for this. I mean, I've got like just buku notes, and I've gone through this thing 2 or 3 times. And it was actually nice to pull it out because then it reminded me a couple things. I was like, oh yeah, eye contact. I did that, and I do that still. Like that's an amazing skill that I learned 10 years ago that I wouldn't have learned otherwise.
Yeah, I'm actually super excited to do some of the comfort challenges, like his lay down in public.
Yeah.
All of them, I've been like, oh, no big deal. Like I used to, been a missionary. I've knocked door to door sales. It's like
Yeah.
I could do whatever. But to lay down in a public place, I'm like, all right, that one would be tough for me.
We're gonna see.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go lay down.
You got to do it, Tasha. I can't wait to see Tasha's.
She's like, what the hell are you doing? Get off the ground! You ruined the whole thing. Yeah. You look like an idiot.
Well, I'll tell you, the first time I listened to that book,
Right over your head.
right over my head, I'm like, I just kept listening to it, and I think I finished it, and I was just like, I'm not really sure what this guy's saying. But yeah, round two's.
Yeah.
Round
It's
two's better.
been good for me.
That's awesome.
Well, I shot over a couple questions John had,
Yep.
which I think are good. And like I told both of you, I think it'd be good to have John kind of take the lead, which we've probably already started the podcast.
It's in there.
We'll probably post
yeah,
it.
just run with it.
And you probably noticed with Sal's, we keep it pretty loose, but the only kind of structure we do is we go around, do our rants, whatever's on your mind. Could be about anything. And then, we'll dive in. I'll let John take the lead, and we'll just start picking your brain. And
Perfect.
is
I like
there
it.
anything you'd want us to avoid?
No, I'm an open book, dude. I wear my life on my sleeve pretty much everywhere I go. So that's a good and a bad thing. So, take what you get, though.
Gotcha.
Even more.
I love it.
Sweet. All right, dude. Well, you want to start? And
Yeah.
Then we'll go over to you. And
Yeah. So
Perfect.
my rant today, I'm not gonna lie, it's weird ranting without headphones on.
you want to put it on for comfort?
Almost.
It's okay.
But my rant today is don't weigh yourself down with busy work. And what I'm getting at is like today I could have spent the whole day in the office with busy work if I really wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But we got in, we got everything done. And by the way, we are like slammed next week. Like probably more than likely will be the busiest week we've ever had. And like we got it all done, taken care of, wrapped up in a nice bow. And it was like late morning. Looked around, was like, hey, we could do
We're
this
good.
stuff. But like, no, we're out.
You can make up work to fill your time. Work for work's sake.
Work
Yep.
for
Like
work's
old
sake.
Tim
Oh, been
says.
there many times.
And so we deuced on out of there.
Huh?
And it was like, you know what? There's a usefulness to making sure things get done and in a timely manner and not procrastinating things, which I think in the past I've more so leaned towards. But yeah, don't work for work's sake. Don't do the things just because you feel like you need to be there.
Yeah.
Like if the work's done, move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
You know, I went and got some other stuff done for real estate, and then I went golfing. It's
Nice.
great.
There you go. Good Friday.
I had a boss once, and he talked about man juice, and it's not the man juice you guys are thinking about.
I mean, there's a couple different kinds.
But that's what he called like getting things done. Like when you have days that you're just killing it. And he's like, that's like man juice. That's like what gets you going, makes you feel like a man, and you're just killing it on top of the world. And I've noticed like days that the time worked has not nearly as much to do as the impact of the work that I did.
Yeah.
Like if you would just spent your time doing all that busy work, I bet you would have not felt nearly as accomplished with your day, even though you might have worked 8 hours instead of 4, being more productive. At
Absolutely.
least that's been my experience.
Yeah, no. And it was nice because, like, we took care of everything. And like, yeah, and it wasn't like, oh man, I'm leaving work, but I have all these things to still get done. Like, no, we were
Good
done,
job.
and off to the races we went.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, love it.
Sweet. Well, it's on your mind, Aaron.
All right, my mind.
You had a 3-hour trip to think about it.
You know, and that's part of my rant is Fridays. I don't know why my Fridays are getting bugged down. It used to be Fridays. It's a joke in the broker world, like, if we want some answers on Fridays, we're not going to get it. Everyone's gone. Like, I mean, people are checking out at 10, 11, 1 at the latest. Like, no one's working.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I'm finding that every Friday I'm getting, like, I spent all up until 15 minutes before I got here, phone, emails,
Please
and
unlock
texts.
your device
Oh,
first.
no, I'm not wanting you, assistant. Thank you. She's still wanting to go.
Let's do this.
Let's keep going. She's like, are we emailing now? Okay, let's go. But I'm like, what is going on? It's Friday. It's after 3:30. No one in the world should be needing my information right now. And vice versa. And so, I don't know. I got to figure out what's going on Fridays. That's on my hit list now of things that I make lists for to try and dial in and dial down. And I don't know what's going on in the world for Fridays, but Fridays are getting out of control.
People are wanting to get stuff handled.
I want Fridays done at 11 again. That's what we need. Fridays at 5:30 answering questions is not good.
So you can go golfing.
Yeah, whatever it is. I don't want to be bugged down on Fridays anymore. I even told I have 2 twins. I call them the boys, or the twin towers that work for me. And when I was leaving the office at 2:30, I left them in a conference with a new developer. It's like, look, I got to go. And then I was telling him before that, I was like, already this day's spinning. I was like, I'm going to leave here and it's not going to spin anymore. So don't call me. What happens for the next 2.5 hours? I am on the phone spinning myself with emails, phone calls, and texts. I was like, that's it. I got to regroup. So my rants on Fridays, I don't know what's going on with them, but I got to get back in control of them because they're driving me crazy.
Yeah. I used to think that was such a badge to wear, like I'm working when no one else is working, which can be useful at times
When it's necessary.
Yeah, but if you're just blindly doing it, you're way better off having your Fridays.
I want my Fridays.
Yes, and if you're killing it the other days too, that's plenty enough time to get work.
I mean, if there's a project or if there's a deadline or if we have something, I mean, I specifically write our contracts so nothing ends on a Friday.
Yeah.
They're all Thursdays. I know Thursday's my day that stuff's going to hit the fan if it's going to hit the fan.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great because that gives me a Friday to clean it up.
Yeah.
Rather than going into a Friday where you got to worry all weekend, everything's going to be a mess. And
You
the next
can't
thing-
even handle it
you
till
can't-
Monday anyway.
Exactly. So all my contracts end on a Thursday. And now I can't remember where I was going, but something about Fridays and something where they weren't working. But working when you need to.
Yeah.
If there's a project or if there's a fire, I'm going to work. I have a poster in my office that says I don't have a 9 to 5. I have when my eyes open to when my eyes shut.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I feel it is. Like some days I might not touch anything. I might not touch one thing. The other day I might have the man juice going and I might knock out a million things, but I might crank it from 5 a.m. till midnight.
Yeah.
But I crushed it.
Yeah.
So it's just the ebb and flow, right?
Which that's a funny thing that I'm going to refer back to this book. People are going to get so sick of me referring to 4-hour work week. But it hit me pretty hard too when he was like, there's no way that the allotted amount of work for every job in the world requires this many hours in this specific time of days. And that's really the case where it's like, man, there's no reason, sometimes you're working until midnight
Yeah.
because that's what it takes. And that's why you shouldn't feel bad if you get to take Fridays and go
No.
golfing.
My mornings, I typically, and I say typically because again, things happen,
Yeah.
things shift. I have my own morning. Like everyone has a morning routine, but I'm not the morning guy. That's just, I've never been. I've always been a night owl. So I've tried the Miracle Morning. It was great for a little bit, burned me the heck out.
Yeah.
I'm not, because I kept staying up too late and I couldn't shut myself down at night. So I shifted. I said, I'm a different kind of Miracle Morning. I'm not the 4 a.m. Miracle Morning. I'm the 8 a.m. Miracle Morning.
Yeah.
So I just shifted everything. So I work till 12, 1, 2. I wake up at 6, 7, 8. And then I go into my day. But my guys know, don't call me unless it's really important before 10. Don't expect that I'm going to be responding to anything before 11. I take that whole time. I do my workouts. I do my checklist. I've got a whole morning ritual with all my stuff that I do. But mine just looks different.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
it doesn't fit into that typical box.
But that-
and it
That's
works.
why you build what you want to build, so you have control of that, right?
Yeah.
So
Now,
you're
if I
not-
worked for someone else, oh my gosh, they'd be like, dude, this is
Yeah.
not what, like, be here at 8.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
Are you saying you wouldn't fit in that box well?
Honestly, I tried that box, and it reminded me that, you know, pulling this out reminded me of it because there was a time in my career where we were shifting out of the company I was with, and I was a partner, into doing my own thing, and that got real scary because I was in a comfort zone for 9 years. 9 years, I was in
Yeah.
the same place doing the same thing. The market shifted. It was the Great Recession, you know, and it was like, ooh, I got to reinvent myself, and I got real scared. And so I went to work for a billionaire. Yes, a billionaire with a B. And I was like, I'm going to learn so much from this guy. This is going to be awesome. I'm going to go crush it for him. And I interviewed with him a few times. We did all this stuff. It was still commission, but it was still a job. You know, he still had the reins. And he was a in-the-box kind of guy.
Yeah.
He had done it the same way forever. He was in his mid to late 60s, and he wanted it done his way. And for him, that meant I had to be in the office at 8 o'clock every day. And I was like, but that's not what this job is. Like, you don't want me here at 8
Yeah.
o'clock because you want me out getting the deals. And at that time, we were doing foreclosures and wholesales and flips, like courthouse step stuff, where the courthouse step starts at like 7 o'clock. We're doing lists at like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So if we're not scrubbing the list at 3 a.m., we're not
Someone
getting the
else
deals.
is grabbing it.
Yeah, so it was like, I can't be here at 8. But he wanted us there at 8 every day, no matter what.
So he wanted to walk in, see his people,
yeah,
his aides
like,
busy at work or
everything
whatever
worked.
he had around that.
That job lasted less than 6 months. And I went in and gave him my notice. I was like, it's been great. It's been a good opportunity. You know, I always said, if a lion's born in the zoo and all he knows is the cage, he's going to be fine. But you get a lion off the Serengeti and you put him in a cage, he's going to go insane. And that's how I felt. I had been free,
Yeah.
roaming the Serengeti of the Phoenix Valley
Yeah.
for 10 years. And all of a sudden he put me in a box.
You got to be at the office at this
I was
time.
like, oh.
You got to raise your hand if you're going to go to the bathroom.
Oh yeah, I mean this guy. There's so many stories about this guy. I gotta tell you something. He was crazy, but I mean he had done well for himself. But yeah, I was like, I'm not that box. I can't go sit in the box. It's
Yeah.
not gonna work.
Yeah. Well, get your Fridays out or get your Fridays back and don't
Getting the
don't stay in
Fridays back.
box.
No busy work. No Fridays. We're getting stuff done.
Yeah. So I've got something that I've ranted about like 1,000 times on this podcast, and it's been too long, so I got to revisit it. And having you on is actually a perfect opportunity. I wasn't thinking you'd do this, but I'll ask you if you remember. Do you remember a particular sign that Grandpa Buck had on his wall? That in his office, he always had one sign up that had a saying.
Things done when first thought of need no further attention.
Exactly.
Boom.
Love it.
Yeah.
I haven't ran on that in a little bit, and it came to my mind today. I had a little experience where I was finishing up, and I noticed my yard was dirtier than it ought to be. Trash gets strewn about. We're a trash company. It happens. We're moving a lot of trash. Trash gets strewn about, and it happens pretty often on payday Fridays. Because everyone's like, we gotta get in, get out.
Get
so
done.
you know, all the guys that their job is to end of the day do their walk around, make sure everything's picked up, make sure nothing's in the neighbors. You know, keep it all high and tight. You know, I think they just let that go. And I just thought of it a little bit because if you live your life by that, it's just so much cleaner.
So much better.
No matter how rushed you are to get out or if something needs to get done, it's not always just the busy work stuff, but something needs to get done. If you just get it done, then it's over, it's handled, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to be worrying, well, maybe I'll get caught on it this time or maybe not this time. And, you know, actually, I'm super glad those guys didn't because it was great. It's been a while since I've walked the yard with a garbage can, picked up all the
Picked it
trash, and there was another driver that came in. I got to have a great conversation with him, so I'm super grateful for it. But it had me think of that because there's times where I'll do that to myself. Well, I'll be like, Friday afternoon or whatever the excuse is of the day, I put things off and then like
Pay
we're
the price.
Yeah,
Every time.
and sometimes it's just mental knowing
Yeah,
that
like,
that's
knowing
not
it's
there.
back there. Yeah,
Mhm.
I should have
Yeah.
done it. I should have done it. You have no idea how many times we quote that to our kids all the time.
Really?
All the time.
Yeah.
Guys, what is it? Things done when first thought of need no further attention. Yeah, it's exactly it.
Wow.
Because if you don't, it's always there. And then we have to remind them 800 times to do it, right?
Well, it's crazy how
Oh,
many-
your kids too?
I know, it's weird, right?
it's crazy how many successful people that we've talked to that are very familiar with that quote. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's like our motto, of course.
Just get
yeah,
it done.
Yeah, exactly. So that I just
I
wanted
like
to
it.
revisit it. 'Cause
Good
it's been
revisit.
Probably a month since I've talked about that on the podcast. So
Good reminder for everybody.
all the rants being said, I think I'll turn it over to you guys to start this off. Let's actually could you introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah.
We haven't even done that.
We're just running. We're just like, yeah.
This guy, his name's Aaron. Everybody.
Like,
Yeah.
who's this guy in the cowboy hat over here? What's he doing? We don't know. He's just talking about random stuff.
We picked him up on
We
Sunday.
saw him driving like, hey, why don't you come in and talk? You do stuff?
That
He
guy
looks-
looks interesting.
He looks like he's off of Yellowstone. That's a cool show. Get him
Yeah.
out of here.
What do you do with ranches? What do you
Is that
got?
Kevin Costner?
So, Aaron Dutcher. I'm a Snowflake native and fifth generation Arizonan. My dad is Chuck Dutcher. They're still in town. And
The Chuck Dutcher.
The Chuck Dutcher. He is the town drug dealer. Been for decades. My dad's a pharmacist, for those that don't know. So we call him the drug dealer. But my dad's an implant or transplant, either way, from Ohio. And my mom's a Smith. And so we've got some deep roots on my mom's side and some great traits on my dad's side of family history that's just awesome. So lots of ties to Arizona and the White Mountains. I graduated high school here in '96, so I am old, and now I remember my parents being this age when I was younger, and it's just weird. It's a weird stage. I went on a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Some of the hardest and best 2 years of my life. I still use stuff from that today. I tell that to my kids. I tell that to my workers. I tell that to people in my office all the time. Like, hey, you know what's something I learned 22 years ago? Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And that was fantastic.
Where'd you go?
Alberta, Canada.
Okay.
Which played out fantastically through real estate because we got a lot of Canadian investors that saved our bacon in the Great Recession.
Yeah.
So to have that knowledge and ties, it's just one of those further blessings I look at in my life and go, we would take these investors that had billions to go buy stuff, and we'd have them talking to financial gurus in the valley, like people that are running banks worth billions.
Mhm.
And they'd be like, so where's Alberta? Do you guys say a boot? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are ridiculous. Like, you're the president of a freaking bank and you don't know where Alberta is?
Is that Europe?
You guys speak English? So I was like, man, so the relationship and trust I had was awesome. And I didn't know at that time, I thought I knew a lot. I didn't know anything. I mean, it was almost like that fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Like, we're just doing this because we're doing it, and it worked out great. There's so many things on that I could tell you about. It's awesome. Got home from my mission, married my high school sweetheart, Randa Stratton, and she's got ties to Snowflake as well. She grew up with everybody up here. We say married for 21 years. It's gonna be 21 years this year. But we did get divorced in 2011. We were divorced for 3 years and remarried. So that's a cool part of our story, a cool thing that worked for us, and just so much growth and great things that happened through all that. So I have the opportunity to talk to lots of men that are going through hard stages or divorces or separations and talk to them about that because it's a really uncharted territory. There's no books on it, and especially that I find of any value. And especially the flip side of that of getting remarried. There's nothing out there for that. Like, how do you bridge that gap? What's that look like? So that's another topic for another time, but that's super, super important in our life, as well as our 5 kids. We have 5 kids. My oldest is now 19, and he is a Marine.
Hoorah!
Yes, Semper Fi, and he couldn't be more proud. Like, he's just doing awesome. He is stationed in North Carolina right now, and going through different changes. He just got restationed, so he's kind of in that like uncomfortable stage, you know. And the only thing I could relate to is like when I told him, I was like, oh, when I got transferred, you know, my first transfer, my mission was so uncomfortable, and this is why. And so it's cool to try to relate that with him and say, hey, here's how we can get through this. And then my wife and my rest of my 4 kids are living in Snowflake right now. Thanks to the pandemic, we moved them up here and let them go to school here, and they're loving it. But it looks like probably at the end of May they're coming home back to Gilbert. I live in Gilbert currently. I'm a commercial broker. I've been in real estate since 2000, which also sounds really old. But I like to say I've done every type of real estate there is to do. I'm kind of the know-it-all, if you will, in our office. Not that I go around and tell people what to do, but they come to me with the weird questions. Hey, have you ever crossed this? Or how's this happen? I've only been stumped once in like the last 5 years. Like, whoa, I've never done one of those. Let's figure this out. This sounds cool. But you name it, from cutting my teeth in property management to investments to funds, commercial, wholesale, foreclosure, short sale, development, land leases, commercial, like you name it.
Flips.
Flips. I did 150 flips in 2010.
Holy
So,
cow.
you know,
Holy cow.
we have been down that road,
Yeah.
right? Like no, sorry, I take that back. 2011, 2010, we only did like 75-ish. But so yeah,
Rookie work.
Let's step it up, guys. Come on. But yeah, and I've just been in real estate pretty much my whole life at this point, and I love it, and I hate it, and I dream about it, and I have nightmares about it, and you know, it's a beautiful love-hate relationship. It has provided me every beautiful opportunity in my life, and has caused me some of the worst stresses of my life. You know, it's like kids. It's really my firstborn kid is my real estate. We even joked that I love real estate so much that my first son's name is Brick, my second son's name is Lot, and my third child, my daughter, her initials are RE, which could be real estate. Yeah. It's not, but that's what we joke about, because it's like, man, you guys are really invested in this real estate thing.
Love it.
We got brick lots and all sorts of stuff. So, but yeah, I'm currently in Chandler. My office is in Chandler. I live in Gilbert and focus primarily and pretty much 100% on commercial right now. And commercial being anything from acquisitions, listings, leases, development, land, but we're not touching right now anything residential, just all commercial. So I think that kind of buttons it up and gives you the history.
So we're going to want to delve a little more into, you know, kind of your journey through that. But one of the questions I have is like, what got you into it?
You know, it's a really interesting story that has to do with your family.
Okay.
Yeah. So I, at 12 years old, I was a weird kid. I was always thinking about, what am I going to do when I get married? And what am I going to do when I go to college? And what am I going to do, you know, with all these life steps? And I would write things down, I'd write things out, and I'd make all these goals. When I was 12, I decided I wanted to be an architect. And I was like, all right, I'm going to be an architect. My mom bought me a drafting table. Kids would come to my room and look for like basketballs and footballs, and yeah, I love to play sports and do all that stuff, but you wouldn't find any. They'd see like a drafting table and architectural books and like plans, and they're like, what are you doing? My friends in high school were like, you're the weirdest
What are
thing.
you doing there, dude?
Yeah. Well, and in high school, like drafting table just became a desk, and that's when computers came along to start doing the drafting, and so I moved into that. So when I got into high school, that's all I wanted to do. So that was all my extracurriculars, or the classes you take that electives. Thank you. Those are all my electives, and anything that could help me with that. Mm-hmm. And I talked to a counselor when I was like a sophomore, and she was like, "Look, there's too many architects. Everyone's an architect. You're going to go to college and you'd be lucky to get a job." And I'm like, "Oh crap! What am I going to do? Like, I've invested all this time, you know." And at that time, it was like 3 years of my life, at 12, you're like, or 14, you're like, dude, that's like a third of my life.
It's almost all of it.
Yeah, like, what am I going to do? And she said, well, why don't you do engineering? I was like, well, what's engineering? Well, that's where you can design like bridges and building. Oh, well, that sounds way cooler. Let's do that. So then I shifted, which was all pretty much the same, but started really focusing on the engineering side. So I focused on all my math. I had my college calculus done by the time I graduated high school. I had all my prerequisites done because I was like laser focused. Like, this is what I'm going to do. I even had a few plans that I'd drawn up and sold and people built. I've got a couple houses in Show Low that people built when I was in high school, you know.
That's cool.
So it was like, hey, this is cool. I love this. Yeah. And it was right when computers were taking off, and that just clicked for me. So like, we were going balls to the wall. Mm-hmm. Went on my mission, came back, went to CGCC, taking some classes at ASU, working on getting out the last of my prerequisites and taking my drafting and getting caught back up because CAD had advanced like light years in 2 years. And now they're into 3D, like big time 3D. And I was like, oh crap, I got to figure this out. I got to get my brain on right. And so they're like, well, you really should just like intern for a company and figure out where you want to, you know, what you want to do and where you kind of want to focus. So I talked to Ballard Truss and I was like, hey, I know you guys don't do like all these different types of engineering, but you know, truss engineering looks good. And they're like, yeah, come learn. We're doing computers now, and it's 3D.
And that's a time frame they were getting into.
Yeah, and so I went to the Mesa office. I got a job there, which was cool because now I'm getting paid, you know, while I'm going to school and learn this stuff. And the guy that was running the shop at the time was like, look, this is a really hard program. No one's learned it in faster than 2 weeks. Like, it's going to take you some time, so don't get frustrated. You know, we're going to do it. And I can't remember what it was, but it was like 4 days. Boom, I'm doing 3D plans. And they're like, how is this? I'm like, dude, this is all I've done my whole life. Like, this is what I want to do. And it was great. And then it was the cubby. It was being in a cubby. And and there were 4 or 5 other designers. And it got to the point, you know, long story short, you know, a couple of the guys cornered me at the water cooler and be like, hey, dude, you got to slow down doing the plans. You know, like, you're going too fast. Like, status quo. Just one plan a day. That's all you got to do.
Take it easy. Make us look bad.
Yeah, you know, and I'm like, on to the next. This is awesome. Like, on to the next. And at the time, a friend of mine from high school brought in some plans for a house they were building. And he brought them in. And he was like, hey, yeah, this is awesome. I'll knock these plans out for you in a day. You come back, I'll get them done. They're like, dude, like, simmer down. At that same time, we did this huge custom build in Scottsdale. And I did the whole thing. And it was super intricate. And there were all these different things that you had to do with the trusses. There was a couple things that the architect did that just would not stand. So we had to get him to change the plans. And so that was a project that took some time. That wasn't a one-day plan. Mm-hmm. But they had cut a truss. And if you know anything about roof trusses, you can't cut them.
Yeah, that's no good ski.
Yeah, it's engineered a specific way. Like, that's what it is. And so, like, hey, we got to go measure, and then we got to come up with a repair, and then we got to go stamp it. I'm like, yes, we're going on site. You know,
we're getting down the office.
Yeah, I'm 20. Yeah, I'm 21. I'm like, best day ever. And we show up. We drive to Scottsdale. They give us, you know, hard hats and vests and the whole night. I'm like, yes. And I'm like, look, that's where I did this, and this is where I did this, and oh, look how he put all this together. This is so cool. And the guy that's, you know, taking me out, he's like, whatever, like, just get over here. Can we measure this? And like, we measure it, and he's like, all right, let's go. And I'm like, no, dude, like, I designed this. Like, look, this is so awesome. And he's like, let's go. Like, this, we got to get back to the office. And I'm like, this is not fun. I don't like this. This is not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And had I had the mentorship for entrepreneurs at that time of my life, I would have definitely stuck with it because I loved it. I mean, I had my own computer at home with my own CAD program, stacks of plans and books, and that was me. Mm-hmm. But at that time, all I could see was, I'm going to get stuck in a cubbyhole, playing the status quo, and maybe I'm going to make $60,000 a year. I don't want this for my life.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and be stuck in the cubicle my whole life. And I quit. I quit everything. I went to school, dropped out all my classes. I kept working.
Were you married at this time?
We're married. My first kid is coming along, and I'm freaking out. It was like my first midlife crisis. I had like 4 of them. This is my first one. This is my first one. And I was only 20, and I'd already hit my midlife crisis. I'm like, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know how to pay for this kid. And we had just bought a house, and at the time, interest rates were like 9.5% for an FHA loan. Like, we're paying buku bucks for a little POS house in Mesa. And I'm like, we're never going to survive. We're never, like, I'm freaking out. Well, that friend of mine who had dropped off the plans comes in at the same time, and I'm still working because it's the only income I got now, and now I'm not going to school. He's like, what's going on? And I'm like, I'm not feeling it. I tell him the story. He's like, well, we're doing real estate now, and it's pretty dang cool, and you don't get stuck in a cubby. You drive around all over the place, and we just signed this account out of California, and we need someone to rent houses. And I was like, rent houses? He's like, yeah. People come and we put advertisements in, they rent houses, and you got to rent them to them. And I'm like, people rent houses? Like, that's how naive I am about the whole thing.
You can do that?
I'm like, I thought everyone just bought houses. He's like, no. He's like, most of the houses out there are rentals. Most people don't own their own home. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I was like, this is BS.
He's like, you're kidding me. That can't be true.
You're so...
It's a joke.
This wasn't the man supreme that we're talking about, your buddy, is it?
Which man?
What's his name? The man supreme. You always introduce.
Oh, Tom.
Tom? No, it was his partner, Brett.
It was Brett. Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And so I'm like, no, like that doesn't sound right. He's like, I promise, and you can make this amount of money, and you rent a house. And so I'm doing the math. I'm like, sounds like it could work. I was like, let me get back to you on that. So I go to Walden Books in Fiesta Mall. This tells you how old this is. That's the only bookstore that I knew of. And I sit down in Walden Books for a weekend, and I read everything I can on real estate. Because I'm like, this guy's full of crap.
Brett, you liar.
Yeah, like, don't be doing this to me. And we went way back, right? Like, Brett graduated when I was a sophomore. He was one of my heroes. And I was like, I don't think he's lying to me. Like,
he must do it for a living.
right? And so I read and all of a sudden I find out, holy cow, not only can you make a living, you can make a fortune. Mm-hmm. Like, this is a huge vehicle. And I was like, I'm in. So went to school, got my license like rapid fire. Was a little overzealous on that because I tried to take my test like the day I finished school. I failed miserably. And then that really bummed me out. So it took me like 7 tries to pass the test.
I don't know anybody else that does something like that.
So once I passed the test though, it was hey, take the blinders off, take the training wheels off, and we're running. And I cut my teeth being thrown to the sharks with Brett and Tom. Best guys in the world. They were awesome. Like, that partnership, I eventually became a partner there, was fantastic because it taught me things we would have never learned anywhere else.
Sure.
And that account they had out of California, it was our golden goose. And I started leasing houses, then I started selling houses, then I started buying houses, then I started doing investments, and then we did 1031 exchanges, and then that led into buying commercial property and multifamily property, and then doing these huge REITs out of Canada that eventually came around. So it was just a property management company, but literally by the time my exodus happened, it was an investment firm. That's really what it was. We were doing things that no one else was doing. We had knowledge that other real estate agents didn't. We understood what the ROI was. We understood what the cap rates were. We understood what a DSC sheet was. All these different vehicles and things that investors cared about to, take care of their wealth. And it was 9 years of awesomeness. I mean, at one point it was ridiculous. It was a printing press that printed money.
Yeah.
And here's all these guys in their 20s that didn't know any better.
Well, I have like 3 or 4 family members that were working there. They were like, we're making so much money.
It was like,
I remember one particular cousin was like, he had just gotten married, and he's like, we didn't know how to spend the amount of money we were making.
It was ludicrous. It was amazing, and the knowledge gained was amazing. Because, when you're managing, as you know, when you manage a ton of employees, you have to grow. When you're managing a ton of deals, you have to grow. And real estate, for whatever reason, is super litigious. We had to grow. So my wife all the time says I have an honorary law degree because in real estate.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because it was crazy. You know, all the different things that you were dealing with on a daily basis, it was absolutely ludicrous. But again, it was this amazing vehicle that just gave us some of the best times of our life. I mean, I literally remember still sitting with my wife. We used to have these massive Halloween parties and have everyone over. And I remember sitting in the back of our yard, this party's going on. We've got like a mechanical bull, and we've got a hypnotist, and all this stuff's going on. We're just having the time of our lives. And I look at my wife and I go, please don't let this be the best time of our life. Like, this is amazing. We've got our friends around us. Our kids were little. I think we only had 2 kids at the time, maybe 3. And I was like, this is unreal. And honestly, for a while, once the recession hit and then the divorce hit, I was like, that was the best time of my life. Good heavens. Dang it, I knew that was going to happen.
What did I say?
I jinxed it. But now, it doesn't even compare, right? And you got to have the ups and downs. And that's every business, and that's real estate because it's secular. You never know where it's going to go. That's why I've reinvented over and over and over again of where does it go? How does it look? What am I going to do next? Because nothing lasts forever, and it always changes. Mm-hmm. And if you can be flexible with that and pliable with that, then yeah, it's great. And now I can look back and go, man, now's the best time of our life. And now I tell my wife the same thing. Don't let this be the best time of our life. Let's keep going. This is awesome. But yeah, it was phenomenal.
That's great. So my next question is what keeps you in real estate?
I'm just dumb and I can't do anything. That's it. I should have got out a long time ago. No, I kid. It's funny because in the I keep saying Great Recession. It's super over dramatic, but the recession, 2008, 2009, 2010. My second midlife crisis was when that hit, because my goal when I was in my 20s was like, I am going to bang it out. I'm going to do everything that I can. And I'm going to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30. My friends knew it. My parents knew it. My wife knew it. That was it. Mm-hmm. And I did it. And I was like, I've arrived. I made it.
I'm enough in life.
I did it. I have nothing else to do. No, you just keep going, right? You just keep going. Literally, by the time 2009 hit, I was on a downward spiral because the whole market wasn't. I had heavily invested in real estate, and I wasn't smart enough to get out at the front end. I was like, nah, it's going to shift. My worst trait is I have rose-colored glasses on almost all the time. It's always going to be better. It's always going to be something cooler. It's always going to go up. That was not the case. So I did not sell at the right time, and we lost everything. So we literally went from here being life goals, millionaire, here I have $100 to my name. Literally lost everything. Cars repoed, house gone, everything. Relying on friends and family to take care of us. I got nothing left. We set, so a little over again dramatic with the $100, but let me backtrack a little bit. When the recession happened, we had nothing left. The partnership at Brewer Caldwell fell apart. And the business fell apart. We had these great Canadian investors, but that was going in the toilet. It brings out the best and the worst in people, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what happened. We had people going in every which direction and a lot of bad decisions. And we were still young. I mean, I was 30, when this happened.
All right.
Yeah. And so we didn't know what we didn't know in a lot of cases. And we were just trying to make it up as we go. And it just got bad. It got really bad. So I had to go leave. I was like, I'm out. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go figure something out. And the only thing I could figure out at that time is because we were buying long-term hold investments at the auction was let's flip houses. I mean, this is right at the verge of we had just heard of someone flipping a house for the first time. Mm. And that was super rare though too, because the market was still declining.
Yeah.
So you're catching a falling knife. It's like, when do you buy? When do you sell? Because we could buy it today and it could still be worth less tomorrow. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So how do we do this?
We don't know where the bottom's at.
Yeah, people flipping houses now, on one hand, it's the same story, but just the opposite, right?
Yeah.
They have to buy it so high, but how high will it go?
Yep. Yeah.
Ours was we had to buy it low, but how low will it go?
Yeah. Uh-huh. And how long can we hold it and manage that?
Yeah, and quite frankly, I almost like it the other way just because I know it. But, people come to me all the time like, hey, do you think it's a good time to flip houses? I'm like, I don't think any time's a good time to flip houses. I mean, quite honestly, you really got to you've got to dial that in. You can make a fortune or lose a fortune in a heartbeat. And so me and a guy that was my sales manager at the time were like, look, he quit before I did, and it was just time. And I left, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I talked to him. His name was Chris. I was like, let's flip a house. Like, these other guys did it. Like, I think they made some money. You know, if I'm looking at where they bought it and where they sold it and estimating what they put into it. So we went for it. So I had a little over $15,000 left to my name at that time. And everything else is getting repoed. Everything else is going away. And we go and buy this house at auction. And I put $10,000 of my money in. He put $10,000 of his money in. And we got the rest on hard money. And we went and we did every bit of work on that house, the two of us, in 2 weeks. Like, I lived there.
Whoa.
We painted it ourselves. We did outlets ourselves. We did everything in that house. Lights, repairs, even laying the sod, which is still one of my worst memories of my entire life because it was like August in Phoenix, like monsoon and hot and sweaty, and we laid our own sod. I was like, I'm never doing this again. I will die first. This was absolutely horrible. And we flipped that house and we sold it instantly and we made money. And so when we got down to $100 was when I had put that $10,000 in. We had just enough for living expenses, and this whole process took us about 2 months to flip this first house. And I literally told my wife, do not spend anything. I don't care if it's gas or food for the kids. We have like $98 left in our checking account. She's like, what are we going to do? I was like, I don't know. Don't spend any money. Like, we're going to figure it out. Yeah. And we figured it out. We flipped the house. And we were like, we got our $10,000 back and another $15,000 each. And we were like, we can do this. Yeah. And then we just started doing that. But it was at that time where I started doing that. This is a really long answer to a short question. That I looked at my life and I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I can't do this forever. Real estate was great, but I'm not going to do it. And I took personality tests, and I took driver tests, and I took this big long one. I can't remember what it's called anymore. It tells you all the letters that you are. And guess what? Every one of them said I should do.
Real estate.
Real estate. You should be a real estate. I was like, bullshit. This is not how this works.
It's the Twilight Zone.
I was like, why? Like, my first one was real estate agent. My second one on most of them was massage therapist. Yeah, I'm not doing that. No one wants these hands.
One of the two for sure.
Like, no one wants these hands on their body, I promise you.
So I have one question about the story you just told, and I have some curiosity around it. What is the biggest lesson you learned from that big swing of events? Like, hitting pretty rock bottom.
And that was my second midlife crisis. Like, that was a hard one.
We'll call that rock bottom. Like, what was the biggest takeaway out of that?
The biggest takeaway is always in hindsight, right?
Yeah.
At the time, you couldn't see the forest for the trees. Like, you're just in it. My greatest takeaway from that, though, is we all deal with fear, and it shows up differently. And I think some fear is good, right? It keeps our senses tight. It protects us in some ways. Fear is good. I like having fear. I like having stress. Stress is good until it passes a point, right? Yeah. Stress can be detrimental. Fear can be detrimental.
Be born if we didn't have any of that.
Yeah, we need that. It keeps us in check, and it keeps us moving forward, and it keeps us getting better if you let it. Or it can cripple you.
If you have to have the right relationship.
The right relationship with it. What it taught me most of all in hindsight is I am not afraid of failing in anything. And I'm not afraid. Like, my greatest fear was being broke and not having any money. Beat that. My greatest fear was not being able to take care of my family. Beat that. My greatest fear was, how am I going to take care of myself? Beat that. And it was years later, we were actually at a church encampment for the youth. We're sitting around the fire. And all the kids, it was one of those awesome, just rare moments where the stars align and the kids are being open and honest and they're sharing their feelings and they're sharing the stuff that they're scared about. And one of the leaders chimed in. He's like, man, we're just in some financial hardship and I'm scared. And like, he's really scared. Like, he's like panic attack scared. And I was like, brother, I got you. Like, there is nothing to be scared of. And I remember being there and feeling that and going, dude, how do you ever get out of this? And now I look at that and I'm like, oh, that's,
that's nothing.
walk in the park.
Yeah.
Why? And it was near crippling. And now it's like, okay, another day. Let's just deal with it.
Would you say you learned more from the lows than the highs?
Oh, yeah. I think anyone does. I think anyone learns more. Again, your relationship with it, if you don't let it cripple you, I think you learn more through every failure than you do a success. Every loss makes you better. Because I'll tell you, there were some times when we would lose the Blue Ridge, I would lose my damn mind, right? But you come out of there and you're like, dude, that is not going to happen again, right? I'm not going to deal with that. And what can I do to be better? Or you can take that and go, I suck, and I'm never going to try. So it really your choice of where you want to go with it, right? And I think my life, not my whole life, because there's definitely been some losing moments where it's kicked my ass for a while. But where you look at it and go, okay, that didn't work. What will work next time? Yeah. How are we gonna do this different next time? And I think that's why no matter where the real estate market's gone, I've been able to reinvent and work with it. I mean, I remember before the pandemic, because everything's been so good for so long, and it was like the conversation of the Phoenix real estate society of when's the bubble gonna pop? When's the next bubble? When's the next downturn? They were everyone. I was like, who cares?
Yes.
I don't care.
More money's been lost in the stock market trying to anticipate downturns than any downturn market has ever cost anybody.
And they're all scared. Like, what's going to happen? I was like, let it happen. Because I'll just go flip houses. I'll just go reinvent myself. We'll do short sales again. We'll do REOs again. We'll go to the courthouse again. And if it's not here, I'll pick myself up and I'll go to Texas. Mm-hmm. Or I'll go to Wyoming. Wherever the market is of whatever it is that we need to do, we'll go do it. But all these people are living in fear of like, oh, what happens if the market turns? What's going to happen now? And I'm seeing it again. But again, because it's that opposite falling knife, right? Everything's skyrocketing where they don't have houses to sell.
Yeah. There's just nothing on the market.
Yeah, there's just nothing. Like, what am I going to do? I was like, create your own market. What can you do? What services do you have or that you can create that you can do in this market? Or how can you make it better? How are you going to go get the listings? How are you going to farm better and beat out the other people so that you get them so someone else doesn't? Or how are you going to get your buyers to the front of the list? Quit being afraid of what the market's doing. You have no control over that. And I think that's another thing. I don't stress about the things I can't control. If I can't control it, so be it. I can't control global warming, so it is this much on my radar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I can't control who the president is, so it's this much on my radar.
Control the controllables.
Yeah. I mean, now I'm going to do my part, I'm not going to go out there and just pour diesel in the earth just, for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go vote because, that's what I'm going to do. But I'm not going to do Facebook rants at 2 a.m. and stress out about it and not go take care of my family and my job because I'm so worked up out of something I can't control. And the market's one of those things.
Well, 90% of everything, no one knows. I mean, I think the market and global warming is a great example. It's like, you might have some experts that see it a certain way that are saying, oh yeah, the bubble's going to come and this, that, and the other. Then you got other experts that are like, we haven't even gotten started. Look how low the supply is to the demand. Like, houses are going to be triple. You better double, triple down. And whether it's that, who the president's going to be or global warming, it's like, it's not like there's some consensus thing out there on anything in life.
I remember when I was in junior high, literally the conversation about global warming was, we're going to turn into the next ice age.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, that's not even a conversation. Now it's the opposite. Now we're all going to burn and there's not going to... I'm like, well, which one is it? Make up your mind.
But there's definitely people that have spent their whole life missing opportunities because they're worried about one or the other.
Analysis paralysis. Mm-hmm. It is a true thing. I have some of the smartest dumb investors on the planet. And I say that lovingly because they're brilliant, but they will overanalyze. And I love what my right-hand man, his name's Nick, said just probably 6 months ago. Because we had this guy. I mean, he was looking to jump in the market for a year and a half and just kept overanalyzing. And and the fall's going to happen. And even when the pandemic broke out, he's like, see, I told you the fall's
This
going
is
to happen.
here it comes.
And the absolute opposite happened. He's like, had he just made a choice,
He would have made a
and
fortune.
he would have been, and he did the math on the building, one of the buildings that he was really solid on, and then failed to pull the trigger. He did the math on it, and this was, probably November, maybe October. He's like, he'd be up $625,000 today had he pulled the trigger when we said go. And he didn't do it. And now he's getting priced out of the market, and he's like not even willing to jump in.
Yeah.
It's like, you missed it. You missed the boat. You tried too hard.
So for those who are listening, and you've spoken a little bit to it, and I maybe just like to maybe paint a brief picture for them. Most people understand what residential real estate looks like, but can you paint a little bit of a picture for people to have a little bit better understanding of what commercial real estate might look like?
I think commercial real estate is the best way to print money because you can make it up. That sounds funny, but literally you can make your own market in commercial real estate. It baffles my mind, but I get it also, and this is maybe an oversimplification because I say, who made up the real estate laws? People that own real estate. Who owned real estate forever back in the day when most of these laws were made? Very wealthy people. They were the only ones that could own real estate. That really didn't change until the late 50s, early 60s, where people really started to take on owning real estate and they sold the American dream, right? So all these laws and rules are set up for the uber wealthy. And now there's a wealth of information available because of the internet where we can all tag into those rules and laws. Residential is the perfect stepping stone because you need those. You need the low down payment, you need the renter, you need the low risk and cost to get into it. But you get a couple of those, as soon as you can, you roll it into commercial. And there's so many genres you can do.
Oh, it's so very
massive. But my favorite, and my favorite's always been, and maybe it's because my very first commercial deal was an office building, but this is when the light bulb went on. 2004, we do an office building. And then it's changed a little bit since then, but the principles are still the same. We do an office building, and we buy it as an owner-user. And what that means is your business is going to occupy it. And today, as long as your business occupies 51% of that building, it's an owner-user building, which allows you to get SBA loans and all sorts of other stuff, which is a whole nother podcast in itself. It's phenomenal.
Great
but you get
interest rates, great terms.
every low down payment, because commercial typically no less than 20% down, which is why that point of entry is hard for most people. And on top of that, the rates are generally higher. Right now, they're crazy low. So it was an owner-user. We get the client in there, and then the bank is telling them, well, set up this holding company. Well, what's a holding company? It's 2004. I'm like 25 years old. Well, you just make an LLC. Well, how do you make an LLC? I go learn how to make an LLC. You make an LLC. What's the name? Make up a name. It doesn't matter. What? And you realize business is just saying it. Like, in a lot of cases, just saying it.
Yeah.
I feel like Michael Scott on The Office. I'm declaring bankruptcy. It's bankruptcy. Like, it's almost that simple for a lot of business. Like, I was trying to explain this to a guy a couple weeks ago because he came to me. He's like, hey, I need to set up these businesses. And he just can't comprehend it. It's like,
he can just, okay, here's a business.
yeah, like, no, you kind of just speak it into existence. Like, I get why, hey, when God said let there be light, there was light, because you just kind of speak business and it happened. You're like, here's business. And you make this holding company. Okay, I got a holding company. Now you're going to sign a lease. You're going to assign the property to your holding company. Oh, you can do that? Yeah, everything in Arizona is assignable. Oh, okay, then sign the contract over to my holding company. Now the holding company owns it. Well, who owns the holding company? Oh, I do. Oh, okay. And now you're going to lease the property to your other company. Well, who owns that company? Well, I do. Okay, well, what do I make the lease? Well, you can make the lease whatever you want. But you should make it this, because that's your return, and this is how you're going to depreciate that, and this is how you're going to shift the income, and you're going to be able to write off the difference. Huh? Explain that to me again. You get to set your own cap. You get to set your own return. You get to set your depreciation based on whatever the depreciation schedule is and that's shifting all over the map right now. And then now you've got this massive tax shelter that's created an income that's all your money. just shifting around.
Just
And
bing, 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 bing,
and
bing.
you've decided what that thing's going to be worth. And then once you sign that lease, that property is now the value of that cap rate. So nothing's changed on that property, and you can change that value. So let's say you bought that property for $1 million. It's $1 million property. It was owner user. It's vacant. It's just $1 million. It was kind of a shell. No one's really putting any value on it. Maybe it was, let's say back then it was $100 a square foot. So you got a 10,000 square foot building for $1 million. And now if you played that game and you signed that lease, and let's say, okay, I want to sign this lease for $10,000 a month, and I'm going to make that lease so it's paying me $120,000 a year. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to do that cap rate. And I'm throwing my numbers at the wall here. So my numbers are going to be off, so don't hold me to these. But you can set what the value is based off of that cap rate. We see it day in and day out. Someone will go buy a vacant building. They'll put 4 tenants in it. Now, if it's other tenants, granted, you're kind of stuck at whatever the market is, but you know where the market is. You can take $1 million building and you can make it worth $2 million in less than a year.
Yeah.
Just by stabilizing it and getting the tenants in it. And more fun, you can do it yourself to your own buildings if you have businesses to put in them. And now all of a sudden you've got this $1 million building that you're renting from yourself, that you're paying yourself and getting all the tax write-offs and all the depreciation, and you just made your building worth $1.5 million by signing the lease. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's the most amazing thing ever. I say it's like ringing the bell at the stock market. They're like, well, what do you want to open the bidding at? I don't know. Let's open it up at $50 a share. Why? Because I said so.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. How much do you want this building to be worth? Well, I want it to be worth $2 million. Okay, sign a $20,000 a month lease. Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's commercial is awesome. And there's multifamily, there's office, industrial, land, development. There's a million things. One of the greatest things I love about it, quite frankly, is that it's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. It's very rarely that I have weekend calls. It's very rarely I have weekend appointments. Now, of course I do. Like I said, my business is when my eyes open to when my eyes shut.
Yeah.
So there's times. There's a time and a place. But 99% of it, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. I'm not driving people around in their cars. I'm not listening to them talk about how they don't like the color of the kitchen and that they wish that the door was on the south side of the house and not the east side of the house. None of that stuff comes up. And I found that it is immensely less litigious than residential.
This how you talk about it and like everything you laid out right there has me interested with your relationship with money. And I had some questions about that even when you were just talking about your story through 2008 and everything. And I've shared this a little bit on the podcast, but as I've started to fiddle around with day trading a bit, that's kind of been my experience. And it really broke my relationship with money because I had this relationship like that value or time was given to receive money. Like there was some sort of law
time
there.
for money.
Yeah, time, or at least if it's not time, like
Product.
yeah, a value given, a value or a service rendered. And that's just not the case with modern money.
It's so different.
You can dink things around in a lease like that. And like you say, it legitimately is in some ways like printing money. And that's what day trading did to me. Like the first time I traded and then exit the trade 3 seconds later and was like, so I made $500.
I just clicked. That's all I did.
Like
and it worked.
What value
Is
was
this
that?
okay?
Yeah, and
This can't be legal.
I love, like, it was so interesting to me as I listened to, like, you talking about how, hey, you told Randa, hey, don't spend any money, there's $98 in our account. Like, still my relationship with money goes to job at Walmart or things like that. And I think it's such a cool thing, like a lesson for me to look at, that even in that situation that, could be considered dire, like right there, you were still not looking at money like your relationship was, I can produce it, not I have to receive it from someone. It's something that I go create and produce.
Yeah, you had an awesome counselor. He should be a coach. And I tell guys, kind of that side story of the divorce, I tell guys, get a counselor. We've all played sports. We've all been coached. And one coach can only take you so far, right? And another coach can take you further, and then another one can take you further, because they all have their own flair in their own knowledge. A personal coach or a counselor can take you places. And lots of guys look at us like, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. That's for wusses. Dude, I think you're being a wuss not to. They can open up your mind in 100 different ways. And it doesn't mean they're always the right guy. Get a different one. I've been through a bunch. I've paid tens of thousands of dollars in counselors. Maybe because of those 4 midlife crises, but also because there's great knowledge there. And I remember years and years and years ago, one of them opened up to my eyes on money because that was a hard conversation for me. Same thing. And I think growing up in a small town in a blue collar, work hard, that's what we're taught. And there's something great about that.
Yeah.
But it creates a ceiling. And there's only so far you can go with that ceiling. And you got to break through that. And breaking through that for me was twofold. It was, one, it's abundance. You have to put it out to get it back.
Yeah.
And some of that's giving, some of that's tithes, some of that's just support, and some of that's just business. Like, it's circular. It has to flow. If it doesn't flow, it dies. It's either growing or dying.
I've heard it described before. Like, you gotta look at it like energy. Like, it's gotta be something that flows through you
Freely.
and you can't hold on to it.
You hold it and you kill it. You know, it's Tommy Boy. Oh, my cell, I'm going to love it. I killed my cell. But I see it too. I see it in cells. I see they try so hard that they kill it. And the other part of that was living in that abundance that, and I tell this to everyone because we get hit with commissions all the time, and commercial commissions aren't guaranteed. There's no MLS. There's no anything that says this is how you're getting paid. We negotiate it right up front with everything else. So it's on the table and it's a chip to be had. And so there's sometimes we really have to fight for it. And I tell this to people. I tell this to my agents. I tell this to the people on the other side of the table, people that come to us. There's enough pie for everyone.
Yeah.
This, even just Phoenix, we're not the biggest metropolis in the world, but we do billions in commercial monthly.
Yeah.
Monthly, billions changes hands.
Plenty enough for everyone.
There is plenty for everyone. And there's plenty enough in this deal, and if it's not this deal, then it's the next deal. And if it's not that deal, it's the next deal. And I always tell people, and some people, they think I'm messing with them. It's kind of like me with Brett, and they're really like, what? People rent houses? They're like, no, we need to dial this in. You need to tell me. And I'm like, there's enough to go around.
Yeah.
If we don't provide it, God will. It just, or universe, whatever you want to call it. There is enough. Finite. Yeah, there is enough pie for everyone.
I hope people that are listening can hear that.
It's a hard thing to conceptualize too, because my guys, my twin towers, they're still trying to like get that concept. Like no, like it says, no guys, there's enough for everyone. And honestly, it's one of those other things. Like when you quit fearing it, all of a sudden it's just opened up.
Yeah.
You know, I remember that same counselor. He was like, I want you to just always envision $10,000 in your bank account. And at the time, I was like, I don't know what it would be like, because granted, we were making money, we were printing money back in the old days, but we were spending it as fast as we could. We were young and dumb and did not know what we were doing. Like we were
come in, right out,
in and out. Like, and there was that old adage: it doesn't matter how much you make if you spend more.
Yeah.
And we were spending more, and we were buying more real estate, and we were spending more and buying more real estate. I mean, it was like Wolf on Wall Street. Like it was crazy. Mm-hmm. And so he'd be like, "No, I want you to envision this, and once you believe it, you can have it." You know, kind of like vision boards and affirmations.
Yeah.
Firm believer in affirmations. Like affirmations to me are just a prayer, and I believe that, and this is not my quote, but I love it, that God honors bold prayers because bold prayers honor God. Like, are we going to stifle him? Are we going to say, no, you can't give me that because that's just too much? He's God. Yeah. He'll give you whatever you want. Yeah. If you want it, and if you want it, if it's the desire of your heart, he will give it to you. You just have to ask and believe.
Well, that's what's so, I think, uplifting is whatever situation you're in, whatever's stressing you about in life, the change doesn't have to be somewhere down the road. The change can be that second of deciding it's different. I had thought of this even just last week. So right now we're remodeling the house. We're living in a camp trailer while we do it. And buying that camp trailer, the amount of stress that buying that camp trailer caused me was outrageous. And I was thinking on that this week. We were sitting there and I'm thinking on that, and I'm like, man, like as a son of God, a child of God, a being that's similar to God. This little camp trailer
Is what's
here,
going to put me over.
like that, I let that create such a big thing, and it really is that fear, and like it will take over. It stops, it kills, and you cannot be abundant and fearful at the same time.
No, it doesn't work.
And I don't think you can be fearful and successful in whatever term you want to put that, whether that's financially, in relationships, whatever. Like it's fear's just there to kill.
It does.
All it does is kills.
It just kills it. And if you get fearful, and it never failed. As soon as I was fearful or put too much energy on the money, it wasn't there. And now, I mean, that was my world then, right? So now my world now is like, if I don't see $100,000 in my bank account, then I'm like, whoa, okay,
Should we do something about this?
Are we just rotating or what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Like, but that's how that reality changes. Where I couldn't even envision 10,000.
Which I do struggle with the balance of like total fear based and what aligns for me as far as being responsible around it. Like that is something that I find at least a hard thing to balance of like, yeah, I want to be open with my money, abundant, I'll give, I'll do whatever. And how do I balance that of being responsible, of keeping a close eye on it and making sure I'm not following other things. And then you throw another human being, meaning your spouse into that. And it
kids.
is tough. Yeah, it's...
You know, I believe in being a good steward in all things. And I think we're blessed. And again, I'm saying God a lot, and for those users that or listeners that's not their thing, universe, natural law, reap what you sow. It's a truth. I don't care who you are. It's truth.
Mm-hmm.
The truth is that you have. Dang it, I got off on my sidetrack again with giving my testimony about truth. What were we talking about? Money.
Then kind of balancing responsibility.
Oh, the stewardship.
Yeah.
I think that if you are a good steward with your time, if you are a good steward with your money, if you're a good steward with your kids, with your spouse, with your business, with your employees, anything, whatever you're a good steward on, you will be blessed with more.
Understand.
I know you didn't, Miss Assistant. Whatever you're a good steward on, because it's a reap what you sow scenario. And that universal law is as old as the earth itself. You reap what you sow. Mm-hmm. And so if you're going to go out there and you have this money, but you're not going to, sow it, you got to rotate it, you got to have the energy, you got to give it out so it'll come back. If you're just going to hold it, well, inflation's going to happen, life's going to happen, all these things are going to happen. So no matter what, if you sit on $10,000, it's not going to be worth $10,000 a year from now.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Mm-hmm.
You have to move it. You have to embrace it. You have to love it. And if you're not a good steward with it and you just go blow it, well, it's not going to come back to you either.
Yeah.
You know, you can't go blow it on, hookers and blow and expect that, hey, you know what? I'm going to get my $10,000
Yeah, it's just going to come right back.
It's just going to come right back. I mean, unless you're a pimp or a drug dealer.
But even then,
there's
that's
no
why drug
guarantee.
dealers don't use blow.
Right? They don't get high on your own supply. It's a rule. That's another universal truth. So, but yeah, I totally get that. And not that I'm perfect with it all the time either. I mean, there's some times when I know, hey, I got this coming in and this going out. And like I said, all of a sudden I look at my account, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's not X amount of dollars in there. What do we do? What did I change? What happened?
Yeah.
But you got to have it flowing, and you can't have it sitting in one place, and you got to be a good steward with it. And I think that's anything. And if you are, I think it comes back.
There's something that Garrett, what you said about finding that middle, and what you said about being a good steward is, and I'll relate it to fear because this is where I heard it, but I think it applies very well to the conversation we're in around this. But applying it to fear is like, you never get rid of fear. It's not like, I've had this, at one point, I took all that fear and I shoved it in the bag and I threw it in the closet.
Put it in a box, I'm going to put it in the bottom of the ocean. It never existed.
Yeah, like, no, you can't get rid of it. Okay?
Yeah.
So you create a relationship with it that like works. And it's not like, okay, left side, right side, in the middle. It's more like universe and in the center. At least that's how I see it. And so, yeah, like being a steward, like for you is going to look different than it is for me.
Absolutely.
And I think that people really struggle with that concept.
And it's a lot easier to say, hey, give me the exact
Yeah.
list of
What
what
do
this
you
should
do
look like.
and how I should do it?
Yeah.
And everyone's different. Like I said, like my morning can't look like a lot of the guys' mornings. It's just that's not how I'm wired. But I figured that out over the last 10 years, right? And I've burned out trying to do the other stuff. So now I don't, because that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
I found what works for me, and it works. My agents now, they love to say, Aaron, you just live in the gray. I love the gray, and I know there's some concepts to that and different things that people would say, oh, that doesn't make sense. You're either black or you're white or you're hot or you're cold or you get spewed out and all this stuff. I believe I'm hot and cold when it counts. When there's the right moments, I'm hot and cold. But there's a lot of things, especially in commercial, I feel, and in relationships, where you got to live in the gray because it doesn't look how I need it to look. My black is not your black, and your white is not my white, right? We all come from different backgrounds, religions, understandings, educations.
Ways of thinking.
So I can't approach, my engineer, Stanford grad, investor client worth $500 million the same way I approach my rancher that's looking to sell his land, that's lived on the same ranch for 100 years and wants to make sure he leaves a legacy for his family. That their black and whites are totally different.
Yeah.
I live in the gray, and I try and marry that, whatever that looks like. My wife says I'm a master at living in the paradox, and that's just where I float, and it's where I find that that's a skill set for me that I think was a little bit just God-given, but also just honed in and living where I lived and going through the experiences that I've gone through to find out how do you go through the fear, how do you go through the good, how do you go through the black, how do you go through the white, and manage that. I live in the gray and just try and marry it together.
I love that you say that, because I think as like the natural part of the way a human brain wants to think, it would look like, well, no, we need a box to put it in. We got to put it in a box, and everyone's got to fit inside this box. And naturally, we're that way. And an average person, in my experience, like, oh, that's a hard concept to wrap your head around. But it's at play.
Yeah.
It's so at play for everybody.
Well, and I think that makes the big difference for people in life. Like, entrepreneurs, the hot ticket item, like, I don't think there's any more industry that's inundated with entrepreneurs than real estate. It's a great vehicle, but it's also a vehicle where you can spin your wheels, spend a lot of money, and never make a dollar. That said, I think that when you jump into something like that, it's people that want to get outside the box, but then it doesn't work for them and they need to fit in that box. Not everyone's built for it. Some people are built to be employees, and they'll be employees to the day they die, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's how they're built. That's what they like. That's their comfort zone.
Yeah.
There's other guys, they're the lions on the Serengeti. They can't be put in the box, and it just doesn't work for them. And so, it's finding out what's your mode of operation. Is it, hey, I need to be an employee and have a side hustle?
And be told what to do with just a little bit of freedom on over here.
Great. If that's you, work with what you are. If that's not you, don't try and go be an entrepreneur and go jump into real estate. And next thing you know, you're falling on your face.
Even though it's a cool thing right now.
Yeah.
Down the road, it's not going to be the cool thing anymore.
You'll lose a fortune.
Yeah.
I mean, and I like an old movie. I've gained and lost, multiple fortunes in my young 43 years.
Yeah.
But that's who I am.
Yeah.
I can't
there's
go
some
do
people
it.
that couldn't handle that.
Yeah, they lose it and they're right back to a job.
Yeah.
And they're like, nope, I'm going to do it. And I've owned construction companies, restoration companies, inspection companies, sign companies. I don't own any of those anymore. And most of those did not make me, they made me some spending cash, or they made me a little bit of a livelihood at the time, but it's not like I sold any of those and made millions of dollars.
Yeah.
No.
Wasn't any IPOs in any of those?
Nothing. It wasn't an incubator startup that all of a sudden, did a raise and we were worth $14 billion. None of that happened. I wished it would have, and in some of those cases, they should have been some great businesses. but I was spreading myself too thin and not focusing on what I was good at. And now I do what I'm good at.
We're coming up. We're over an hour.
All right.
I could do this all night, but you got places to be.
I gotta go.
We all got families probably waiting on us on Friday nights. So, last thoughts. You got any last thoughts you want to share?
I just appreciate you guys having me on here. I mean, I've listened to your podcast a number of times. I think it's great what you're doing. I admire it. I wish I was, again, more ambitious and young to do podcasts and do things and be out there. I love what you've done with playing off the trash talk and the homegrown heroes and just making Garbage Man cool. Like, it was almost like that old, like, thing you would tease someone about when you were a kid. Like,
you're going to be a garbage man.
You're going to be a garbage man. Well, guess what? I'm going to own the garbage company. And honestly, I think it's brilliant, and I admire it so many times. And I go, man, I need to find a small town somewhere I can go start a garbage company.
It looks like it's fun.
That could be awesome. I get a garbage can on a
Get
go-kart.
car.
I can drive around big trucks. So, yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me here. I admire you guys. Both your families are amazing. It's I was scrolling through your podcast this morning as I was getting ready and doing my morning studies and different things, reading. And it amazed me how many of the people you've had on your podcast have influenced my life in one way or another.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's cool. Lots of people look at coming from a small town as a hindrance, and I look at it as a huge blessing.
Oh yeah.
Because, your dad, your dad, Grandpa Buck, just right here, just that, and then you put in the Toms and the Sams and then everyone else, and it's like, holy cow. And being able to grow up and be mentored without knowing you're mentored from these guys, I mean, that's huge.
That's incredible.
So,
Really
good job.
Appreciate it, man. Well, and dude, you talk too a little bit would make it sound like you're not up to a bunch, but watching you on Instagram, you're up to a bunch, and you and your family are fun to watch. Your sweet van that you roll around in, the Dutch 7, and the adventures you go on. So yeah, check that. And actually, I don't even know if your Instagram is public or is it?
It is. Yeah.
Is it public?
Thing old real estate. That's people always talk about privacy laws. I'm like, dude, with real estate, there's no privacy. Like,
don't worry about it. So how do people find you on that?
This is Dutcher is my Instagram. I'm on Facebook, Aaron Dutcher. There is another Aaron Dutcher, but he's a college basketball player and not near as good looking as I. So don't go to him. I mean, the guy looks like Clark Kent.
He's there for
He's got like 8 packs, got the swirl in his hair. I'm like, come on, dude, really? Like, jeez. So yeah, Aaron Dutcher on Facebook or this is Dutcher on Instagram, and hit me up.
All right, awesome.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.